In the quiet hills of Murenge, where the mist kisses the tea leaves each morning, lived an aging patriarch named Mzee Barisa. A man of deep Kikuyu roots, his word had long been law in the village, and his family was both respected and envied. With 4 grown children, he was nearing his final days and had one last task: to pass on the sacred gourd, the traditional calabash that held the blessing of his ancestors, to the rightful heir. But on the morning of the blessing ceremony, the gourd was gone. Panic swept through the compound. The children, Wanjiru, Kamau, Injeri, and Kaib, stood in disbelief. Accusations flared. The gourd had been kept in a locked wooden chest in Mzee's hut, untouched for years. Only one of them could have taken it. Or worse, someone wanted to destroy the family's legacy. Mzee Barisa, though weak, rose with the strength of a lion. "This gourd," he said, voice trembling but firm, "is not just wood and hollow. It carries the promise of our bloodline. Without it, none of you will inherit." His eyes scanned each child, looking for truth, but what he saw was fear. Tonight, no one leaves. The one who took it must return it before sunrise, or face the curse of silence. Night fell, and with it came whispers, secrets, and buried memories. Wanjiru, the eldest daughter, wept quietly in her room. She had always been her father's favorite. Could someone have tried to stop her from receiving the blessing? Kamau, the ambitious second-born, paced near the gate, whispering on the phone. Injeri searched the grounds by lantern light. But it was Kaib, the quiet one, who disappeared entirely. At midnight, a distant drumbeat echoed from the forest. The rhythm was ancient, a sound not heard in the village for decades. The family froze. Mzee Barisa lifted his head slowly. "That sound," he said hoarsely, "only plays when the spirits are summoned. Someone has awakened the ancestors, without permission." The family compound was cloaked in an unnatural silence as dawn approached. But deep in the nearby forest, Kaib moved quietly beneath the acacia trees. He held a small leather pouch and a journal bound in banana fiber. His face was tense. He had come to this forest many times before, not just to escape the noise of his siblings, but to speak to something older than them all. "Show me the truth," he whispered into the dark. A gentle breeze stirred the branches above him, as if something had heard. Back at the compound, Kamau crept toward Mzee Barisa's hut under the cover of twilight. He wasn't looking for the gourd, not directly. He was searching for the old man's will. If Wanjiru was meant to inherit everything, he needed proof or a way to stop it. As he rummaged through scrolls and folded parchment, a dusty photo fell to the ground. One of their mother, Mama Waku, holding the gourd beside a young Wanjiru. Kamau froze. His lips tightened. So it was always her. Meanwhile, Injeri had gone to the village elder's home, hoping to find answers. She believed in truth, not curses. Elder Mwangi, a nearly blind seer, listened as she explained everything. "The gourd is not what holds power," he said slowly. "It's the hearts of those who respect it. But if stolen with greed, it awakens the ancestors, and they do not forgive easily." Injeri trembled. "Then Kaib, he's in danger, isn't he?" The old man only nodded once. Just outside the homestead, Wanjiru stood beneath the fig tree where her mother used to pray. She held the necklace Mama Waku had given her on her wedding day, one shaped like a small calabash. "Why does it always fall on me?" she whispered. The wind shifted. From the distance, a drumbeat echoed faintly again. Wanjiru looked toward the forest. Kaib had reached the old sacred grove, a circle of stones where their grandfather once offered sacrifices. He placed the pouch on the ground and opened his journal. "Forgive them," he whispered. "They don't understand." As he began to chant an old family blessing, the ground trembled slightly. The journal pages fluttered. From the shadows, a voice called his name softly, not from the living. The spirit that appeared to Kaib looked like Mama Waku, but her eyes held the weight of generations. Her form shimmered in the sacred grove like morning mist over warm soil. "You carry pain, my son," she said in a voice that was both wind and memory. Kaib lowered his head. "I only wanted peace." She knelt beside him, her translucent hand reaching for the pouch. Peace comes through truth, not silence. Go home. You must speak before sunrise, or the curse will settle. At the compound. Mzee Barisa sat outside his hut, shivering despite the fire. He felt something shift in the air. Waku, he muttered. I feel your spirit tonight. He turned to see Wanjiru approaching, holding the old necklace. She knelt before him, placing it in his palm. If it brings clarity, use it. The fire cracked. The necklace trembled. And in that moment, Mzee Barisa saw something, a vision, of Kaib in the forest, surrounded by light and spirits. Inside the hut, Kamal flipped through old letters, his frustration growing. There's nothing here, he hissed. But then, behind a loose wooden plank, he found something, a faded letter addressed to Kaib in their father's handwriting. It read, To the one who sees what others miss, this gourd will one day call you. Kamal's eyes widened. He was always meant to have it, he whispered. The arrogance drained from his face. Njeri returned from Elder Mwangi's place just before dawn. As she entered the compound, she noticed strange patterns drawn in ash near the gate, symbols of protection, common in old Kikuyu rituals. She touched one and heard whispers, a language she didn't understand but felt in her bones. She backed away slowly, knowing now that something more than family was watching over this house. As the first light of day crept over the hills, Kaib began walking back toward home. The forest was still. Behind him, the spirits faded. In his pouch was a simple object wrapped in cloth, the ancestral gourd. He had taken it not to claim it, but to protect it from his siblings' anger and confusion. Now, guided by Mama Waka's voice, he was ready to return. But would they listen? The sun broke gently over the hills as Kaib stepped back into the compound. His siblings were already awake, each one standing in silence. He clutched the gourd, wrapped in woven cloth. Wanjiru gasped, Kamau took a step back, and Njeri stood frozen, not in anger, but in awe. Kaib walked past them all and knelt before Mzee Barisa, who sat beneath the fig tree, his eyes shut as if he had been waiting. I brought it back, but I didn't steal it, Kaib said. I was protecting it from all of us. Mzee Barisa slowly opened his eyes and motioned for Kaib to unwrap the gourd. The woven cloth fell away to reveal its aged, sacred surface, smooth and dark from generations of oil and prayer. The gourd shimmered faintly in the morning light. You heard the call of the ancestors before any of them did, Mzee said softly. You knew the weight of this thing. It does not belong to the loudest. It belongs to the most faithful. The siblings looked at one another, the old rivalry dissolving slowly into guilt. Kamau stepped forward, his voice unusually quiet. I was searching for Father's will. I thought if I could find something that proved Wanjiru wasn't chosen, he paused, shaking his head. But I found a letter. To you, Kaib. I was wrong. For the first time in years, Kamal's pride cracked. He looked his younger brother in the eye. I'm sorry. Kaib didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stood and handed the gourd to Mzee Barisa. I was never meant to keep it, only to return it. Later that afternoon, the family gathered for a quiet meal under the mango tree, the first in many moons. No drums, no rituals, just simple food and silence between bites. Wanjiru smiled faintly. Mama would have loved this, she said. Njeri nodded. She knew the blessing was more than tradition. It was love. Kaib added gently, the gourd just reminded us of what we forgot. Even Kamal laughed, not a forced laugh, but a real one. Mzee Barisa watched them with quiet satisfaction. That night, as the fire burned low, Mzee Barisa called Kaib into the hut. Take the gourd, he said. You're not the heir because I said so. You're the heir because you listened to the forest, to the spirits, to your silence. He placed the gourd into Kaib's hands. But remember, power isn't in the gourd. It's in the heart that protects it. Kaib closed his eyes, and for the first time, he didn't feel invisible. He felt chosen. 1 week later, the entire village gathered under the sacred fig tree, where generations had once received blessings. Mzee Barisa, now visibly weaker, sat in a ceremonial chair. In front of him stood Kaib, clothed in a freshly wrapped kaitenj robe, the ancestral gourd cradled in his hands. Wanjiru, Kamau, and Njeri sat proudly beside him, no longer divided. The gourd had returned, but so had peace. And now, the blessing would be passed on not just to one heir, but to an entire family healed by truth. As the ritual began, Elder Mwangi stepped forward to anoint Kaib. He lifted a calabash of sacred oil and whispered prayers in Kikuyu. When the oil touched Kaib's forehead, the wind shifted and the fig leaves above rustled louder, as though the ancestors themselves approved. Mzee Barisa lifted his walking stick and tapped the earth. Today, our line is restored. Today, we do not pass down bitterness. We pass down belonging. Later that evening, Wanjiru and Njeri prepared a small altar inside the family hut, a quiet tribute to Mama Waku. They placed flowers, the calabash necklace, and a portrait of her beside the fire. She would have been proud of us, Njeri whispered. Wanjiru nodded. She never wanted us to fight over the gourd. She wanted us to remember who we are. For the first time in years, they held each other without tension, only love. Outside, Kamau sat with Kaib, sharing roasted groundnuts like they had as boys. Kamau chuckled. Turns out the quiet ones are the most dangerous. Kaib smiled faintly. Not dangerous, just patient. Kamau looked out toward the hills. Don't lose that. The family will need you. There was no pride in his tone, only respect. For the first time, Kamau saw his brother, not as a threat, but as a leader. That night, the stars above Murenge shone brighter than usual. Mzee Barisa, lying peacefully on his mat, whispered one last blessing into the air. Guide them well, Waku, he said with a faint smile. Then, silence. The gourd rested safely at the center of the home, no longer a symbol of power, but one of peace, truth, and unity. And as dawn approached, the birds sang a new song, one that spoke not of inheritance, but of legacy.